What's up, everybody? Welcome back to All Smith. Today we're sitting down with a very special human. He's an elite gymnast, an Olympian, a Stanford alum, and the co-founder of Power Monkey Fitness. This conversation is about fundamentals, mastery, education, and where fitness has been and where it's headed next. But most importantly, he's a girl dad. So we need to understand all of the things associated with being a dad and navigating that chapter of his very special life. Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Durante, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, man. Great to speak with you.
Stoked to connect. I have so many questions that are just like floating to the surface right now that I just want to like word vomit. But as we were briefly chatting beforehand, you mentioned, I just think it's such a great analogy of like dad driving in the front seat and daughters in the back. And your daughter had mentioned something of like, hey, in order to be a part of the Durante family, you need to do 3 things. What were those 3 things that you had mentioned to me?
Yeah, and this was totally unprompted. Like, we didn't push for this. She just said, 1, most important, you need to always be ready to go on a big adventure. You have to be ready to get up and go, and that includes being on a plane and traveling around the world. It's like, okay. And then number 2, you need to be able to work on speaking Italian. I'm like, okay, both my daughters are Italian citizens. I got their passport. I'm an Italian citizen. My parents are from Italy. And so it's a big part of our lives, having the ability to connect with that side of my family. So, okay, we lived in Italy a little bit with them too. And then 3, you need to be able to do handstands. I was like, my daughter's got it spot on. All day I'm upside down at the house, and they obviously mimic what their parents are doing. So I appreciated very much her summing up pretty succinctly what it means to be a Durante.
I love it, man. But the thing that's interesting to me, if I were to put on my hard hat and grab a shovel, is to kind of unpack what those things mean, right? Like when I look at adventure, you and your wife have this unique ability to be very open-minded. And I think from a coaching perspective now, which is the journey that you've been on for a while with Power Monkey Fitness, you're not coming in with this closed-minded dictatorship style of leadership or coaching. You're taking in lots of various information, sharing your experience. And when I hear adventure, I think, hey, movement is play. Movement is a way for us to better get to know ourselves. It's for us to understand where shapes are advantageous and where shapes are leaking or lacking force production or efficiency. Can you touch a little bit on your headspace around how that word adventure plays a role into your day-to-day associated with training, gymnastics, and movement?
I think that's a great question. I will say I try not to be very dogmatic around the approach that we take. And that's not to say that I don't believe in what we do, because I believe very strongly in the techniques that we do teach, but they evolve. And what that means is I want people to understand that gymnastics techniques, like the way that I trained to get me to a high level of competition, doesn't mean that it was the perfect way for the next generation. And so when you're saying that we're open-minded, I think all the Power Monkey coaches are very open-minded to understanding how other expertise can help their own specialty perform better. And that's where we've always tried to collide our worlds and say, what is the weightlifting world doing really well? What is the conditioning world doing that we might be able to utilize some tools and some techniques to make our world of training better? And so we've always been very open-minded around saying we believe very strongly in the way to train. However, there may be some new techniques and new methods and new studies and new research that's showing that there are some tweaks that can make things better. And we've implemented a lot of those things. And, what I'm teaching now versus what I'm doing 10 years ago from a holistic standpoint looks very similar, but there's some tweaks and some changes. And it's about evolving with taking in more education. And so I just want to be very transparent about all of our coaches being open to educating ourselves around how to become better at what we do. When it comes to the adventure side of things, it is about play, and we have a gym in our house, and we don't call it the gym, we just call it the playroom. And the playroom includes, stall bars and rings, and my wife is an aerialist, and so we have silks and lyra, which is the big hanging hoop, and some mats hanging around, and our daughters just learn to play and have fun with it, and how a skill can be an adventure in and of itself. The journey that comes along with skill development is an adventure that you should want to pursue. especially as an adult who's finding these things for the first time later in life, they shouldn't be a chore. They shouldn't be something that you dread going into the gym. I got to work on my muscle up today. The mindset around getting to do things rather than having to do things is extremely powerful. And so I tell this to my daughters, it's something we preach endlessly within our family, but also I tell our Power Monkey team this often. We get to do these things. How lucky are we that we get to be on this adventure of skill acquisition and teaching and whatever it might be? So that change in perspective allows you to embrace the adventure and kind of go forward with a very positive attitude as opposed to dreading the adventure and saying, I have to do this rather than I get to do this.
Right there, man. I should probably just end the podcast right there, because in my brain, as I approached this conversation, I actually wanted to kind of poke and pry and understand how you integrated the spiritual component, and you do it right there. Mm-hmm. In order to create a space that has room for growth and longevity, especially as people get older, their interests change, their time domain changes, the amount of room on their plate just gets more full. I think there's a very famous question, and I dealt with this firsthand, especially in 12 years of competitive CrossFit, where it's like, do I have fitness or does fitness have me? And Dave, fitness had me. It was the conversation of, I need to work on my handstand push-ups. I need to work on my muscle ups. I need to do the handstand obstacle course. Mm-hmm. And later on, once my father got diagnosed with terminal cancer in 2018, that flipped my script. Like I developed, as Mark Manson would say, a little bit more of like the subtle art of not giving a fuck. Because I realized that like movement and play was unlocking a version of me that I hadn't met yet. And then it echoed like Matthew McConaughey's thing, which is like, hey, my hero is me in 10 years. And you're just like constantly in pursuit. And so like all these different like lights were going off. But I love that you said, we don't call it the workout space, or we don't call it, the place of something that's a little bit more intimidating. It's the playroom. And play is exactly what we're doing. I mean, gymnastics and fitness is an adult playground. And an adult playground is hard sometimes. It's grippy. It's messy. You get injured sometimes. It's very difficult. But within that, it sounds to me that you guys, you specifically and your wife, not only in the container that you've created in your home, but also in the container of Power Monkey Fitness, you've created a space that's very inviting. You've created a space where people can now come in and explore their edge. They don't need to come in with an expectation of like, oh, this is what I saw on social media. This is what I'm supposed to be able to do as a prerequisite. I'm going to stiff arm that and run away. How did you guys come to that realization, and what is it within you and within the headspace of you and your Power Monkey team that realized that that was so important within the framework of what you're doing now?
Well, you couldn't be more right in terms of how we approach what we do at Power Monkey. However, I would not be honest if I said it was the initial intention. It happened organically. And I'll say it with regards to how we teach at Power Monkey Camp, because I think a lot of people think about Power Monkey as being only a camp. And that's kind of our hallmark event, our full week-long adult fitness camp out in the woods of Tennessee. It's phenomenal. And I would like to talk a little bit about that, because I think it expresses everything that you're talking about in probably the easiest and most accessible way. When we started putting camp together, 13 years ago now, we're starting our 25th camp is coming up at the end of April. The intention was to get a lot of experts who really care deeply about what they do in their own individual specialties. Dave Newman is one of them from our Smart Gear that played one of the most critical roles in being able to make camp a real thing. But guys like Chad Vaughn and Mike Service and Duke Van Fleet and Shane DeFreitas and these Olympians and incredible athletes in their own individual fields, we decided to come together to create an environment where we could teach people. And we wanted education to be at the forefront so people could learn specialties from the experts in an incredible location. And what we didn't realize was going to happen is that it turned into a life-changing experience for everyone involved, not just for the participants, but for us as coaches and staff. where we could create an environment. Like I said, it's a playroom in my house. Camp is 200 acres of play space. And it's 32-acre lake, 50,000 square foot of gym space where you can act like it's a kids' gymnastic camp in the summers, right? It's used as that facility, but why not create that same environment for an adult? Why do we have to stop being kids? And so we fostered an environment where you could fall and it be okay, and you get picked up and someone lead you to the next thing that's new and scary and overcome. Whether that's doing a ropes course where you're scared out of your mind because you're 40 feet off the ground and you have 50 people below you cheering you on and overcoming something you never thought you'd be able to do, or trying a skill for the first time, knowing you're in the hands of an expert that would not let something happen to you. And so that play space has been expanded to people of every demographic, from 16 all the way up to mid 80s, from every skill level, from never having picked up a barbell or gotten inverted before, all the way up to CrossFit Games champions. And we're all in the environment together, and we're learning and playing together. And so for me, that has been the expansion of what I do at my house and what I do with my kids. And camp has allowed us to all be kids again in the most fun and engaging way, in an environment that embraces people's flaws, people's innate challenges when it comes to skill development, and exposes them and makes it okay for people to be like, I'm not good at this and I want to become better. And how do we foster that? So camp has been totally different than what we initially intended. And I'm incredibly proud of what it's become. And it's only because of the people that have continued to come to camp from both the staff and the camper side. So camp is our highest expression of adventure for adults to be able to feel like they can just be their true self and know that they're accepted.
It's a beautiful recollection. And what's cool is I've heard that same depiction from 10 to 20 different people within the wellness space. What I'm curious around with you, Dave, is information is everywhere, but true understanding is rare. Anybody can chat GPT program design. Anybody can, grab information now. It's not very difficult. But actually having understanding, forming a relationship with the handstand, with the barbell, with fear, with contrast therapy of sauna and ice, forming a relationship with the energy of what it feels like to get vulnerable at one of the fireside chats there at Power Monkey Fitness, or at Power Monkey Camp rather. I just feel like we're overstimulated all the time, but we're undereducated. How do you guys create that original buy-in? Because you have to get people there to create change. Then once you get them there, it's like you might have some people that are relatively pessimistic. Is it through the experiences? What is it that softens them to enable them to take their guard down, where it's no longer about what can I get? What's the information? Why did I come here and spend this money? And it becomes, what can I give? How can I be an active participant to contribute to the greatness of this special space?
Man, that's super powerful. And we get that response quite often, more often than you would think, from people who attend camp for the first time. They want to come back again. They want to come back as a participant. They want to bring their friends. They want to become part of our staff. And it's not because of what's taught in the sessions. It's because of all the in-between times. Mm-hmm. The in-between times are what make camp special. And you can go to a weekend seminar and learn from an incredible expert that just like distills information in a way and disseminates it to you in a way that just resonates. Awesome. I learned that handstand from that expert, and you go home. Cool. 2 days, you were with them for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it might be, and you're gone. You're eating your meals by yourself. You're going to your own hotel room and sleeping. Camp, the in-between times are what make it special. I'm telling you, a week together where you're having breakfast, lunch, and dinner together, where you're doing open gym and just shooting the shit and just learning about each other's backgrounds and flaws and reasons why they attended camp in the first place, and then going to the campfire and having a s'more and having a beer with somebody and learning more deeply around who they are as people, allow people to open up and trust that what you're teaching them goes beyond just wanting them to become a better athlete, but become a better person. And so for me, I've learned that the in-between times at camp are something you can't manufacture. It's not about the education.
Right there real quick though.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, even with looking back at like my CrossFit experience, I didn't make the CrossFit games because I was fitter than other people. I made the CrossFit Games numerous times because I had the urgency in the in-between to transition more efficiently. I saw the gaps in other people, and I pulled that string or that thread from basketball and realized like magic is in the in-between. How do you go from being intentional on a podcast and then run onto a Zoom call that's talking about finance? Who are you in that in-between? What is that little buffer and the magic where you can compartmentalize and then jump into the next thing? The in-between is the magic of a high performer.
Yep.
But Dave, that's not what's romanticized. Everybody's showing, oh, I PR'd this thing at this camp. I met this person. Take a picture with me, CrossFit Games athlete. Like, oh, I went to this. Like, the in-between is what is experienced. The in-between is not what's marketed. And right. I think a lot of the human experience is that. Like, you and I both know this. I'm recently married, as we talked about before. The beauty is mastering the mundane. It's, hey, babe, like, did you take the dogs out? Oh, thank you so much. Like, I had to hop on that call real quick. Or, man, I got home late because I was doing X, Y, and Z thing. She's like, oh, it's all good. I got dinner for you. And gap filling in return. It's the things that are not, hey, here's a picture of our wedding photo. Here's, we got our first dog. We bought our first house. Like, those are the things that are romanticized. And then that starts to create this false perception of reality within the blueprint of the headspace. And so I'm curious with you, like I said this to Dave Newman, he was like, dude, you got to market that. I was like, there's a difference between REEL and REAL.
Yeah.
And I want to unpack that a little bit with you.
Yeah. And you're exactly right. I mean, I cannot have put it better, except I don't know what the answer is, to be honest with you, because it's funny, just as an example, our media team at camp is great. They're fantastic. They're really good at what they do. And they've been to camp with us enough times to get it. It's not like they're one-offs and they do one camp and they leave. They've been with us camp. They were campers initially, some of them, and then they turned into staff, and now they've been part of our media team for a while. And a couple of them put together a video that's a really great, like, incredible, heartfelt experience that almost told a story of a little girl growing up, what it meant to create and form connection relationships. And then it cuts to her showing up at camp and now creating and forming those same type of relationships as an adult. And it's beautiful. It's really well done. It seems like it almost is like a trailer of a high-end movie. And internally we were like, created real emotion for us, crying, and wow, this is beautiful. This really captures what we feel at camp. And we got a lot of responses like, from people who have never attended camp, like, this is terrible. Like, this tells us nothing about what camp is. Like, I would never attend camp just by seeing this type of emotion. And we realized that it was only emotional and impactful for us because we had experienced it. And what they were looking for was the other reel. They were looking for the fireworks. They were looking for, get me to camp. And it's hard to express emotion that then translates into a marketing piece, like a sale. So if you think about it from like a sales or marketing perspective, we've had a really hard time of being able to express what camp is through a reel or through just static images. It's incredibly challenging for us to be able to do it. So like when I have a chance to talk about it, I do my best to not sound sales pitchy because I'm legitimately forever changed by what these experiences have done to me as a person, as a coach. And so coming to the event is the only way for someone to experience it and then see that video and say, I get that. And so we've struggled as well to be able to say, how can we create real experiences and showcase it to for people that have not attended and use it as a marketing opportunity? I don't know the answer to that. It's not something that's readily available, but we've come up with the same problem for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate the honesty because that's healthcare, right? Like healthcare is marketing. Hey, you have a problem. We're going to fix it. We're going to fix it fast, whether that's orthopedics, whether that's big pharma, whatever. But the real magic is, I actually built trust with my primary care physician. He spent more than 7 minutes with me and he wasn't just looking at an intake form. I felt safe in that doctor's office to not only share some of the experiences that I've been having, but all of the various symptoms associated with what brought me here in the first place if it was outside of a physical. you can't market that way, right? The marketing is, what's your problem? We'll fix it fast. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because it just goes to show, like, you and I could be hanging out here in San Diego, hit a nice beach walk and be like, bro, look at that sunset. The picture of the sunset doesn't really capture the moment.
Sure.
It's an image. It's cool. You can tinker with lighting or editing or whatever and try to recreate it for the consumer. But that doesn't have the vibration of the waves crashing, the sound from the birds, the people and the ambiance that you're with, the experience that you had maybe beforehand, whether that's dinner or drinks or a workout of some sort. I think it just goes to show, like, I've been reminiscing a lot around the 90s. And I'm like, man, we used to like sit on the curb and like bullshit and kick a soccer ball around and throw a football around. If we got thirsty, we drank from the hose. And if we had to pee, we either like ran into a neighbor's house or like peed in the bush. And like, I remember like we tried to do chores and different things. And I remember going to like fast food and paying in all change because that's all I could get out of my parents, because it was just a time like that. But like, we weren't like, hey, pose real quick. Let me show how you kick the soccer ball on the phone. And like,
yeah.
Times have really changed, and it's interesting because it's bled into marketing. It's bled into how we provide and protect for our families. But I think what I'm trying to get to here is not to like romanticize what was. It's more so to like, how do we blend it? How do we have a real experience that's felt and is authentic, and people can look and shift their lenses on content and not think just about what can I get? Why am I spending the money? But more so like, whoa, that's out of my comfort zone. I want to actively go be a participant in something in that environment with those people in that space. I mean, another huge component of Power Monkey Camp is to have all of these high performers in one space. How often are you going to get that? I mean, people pay hundreds of dollars to be a part of entrepreneurial groups and get in the same room. Mm-hmm. With certain folks. And the fact that you guys are able to like magnetize and attract that type of environment in and of itself is probably worth the cost of entry.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. And it's the access that's different, because like I said, you can go to a weekend seminar and listen to 10 experts and you listen to their spiel, you get your question answered, and then you go home. This is totally different. Like, the experts are there. They're having your meals with you. You can go work out with them. You know, it's so much more of a deeper connection. And the other thing is, we're in the middle of nowhere. So for better or for worse, the internet connection is spotty. Like, we have a couple Starlinks and stuff that have helped. And like, we do our best for people that need to work and things like that. And we recognize that that's a real thing. But we highly encourage people to try to turn off from being on something digital as much as possible throughout the week and just create some human interaction. Like, we are just so limited today with how much that's feasible or how much that's encouraged, that it's actually one of the selling points of camp. Like, turn your damn phones off and come and actually be with a person, have a meal with them, have a workout with them, and do it in a way that encourages you to see other people's vulnerabilities and understand that everyone has something that they're going through. And I guarantee it'll kind of open your eyes a little bit around, hey, what's going on in my life maybe isn't as bad as I thought, because I can actually share this with other people and understand that no matter where someone's from around the world, we are all in this together in terms of trying to become better, whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally. And it's a very, very powerful experience. And so we highly encourage people to be like, yeah, we get it. Social media part of it is a part of what we're trying to do, but we hope you can turn off and just be with someone else from a physical perspective for a little bit of time.
Yeah, that's rad, man. The thing that I'm thinking about is the thing that we think is so important at the time is really not that important. It's kind of a paradox, right? Like, you do a workout and you're thinking like, oh man, I'm not that good at chest to bar pull-ups, but I'm really good at the squat cleans. I'm really good at the assault bike. And in that moment, that level of anxiety creates a spotlight effect on the chest to bar pull-up. But if you notice what we're doing and we're like self-reflecting on like, oh, if we do a workout with somebody, if we have a meal with somebody, it's not really about the specifics of the workout. It's not really about the specifics of the meal. It's about the moment and the energy and the presence and the shared vulnerability and the shared storytelling and the depth of connection. How do we rewire that in the human mind because it depreciates from the experience. And like I've talked to a lot of my CrossFit Games athletes, and like they'll walk out and they're like, oh my gosh, like I'm so worried about that thing. And they like, the camera will zoom in on their face and they like look pissed, or they look scared, or there's, you know, a physiological response. And then the games end and they're like, fuck, I don't even remember the experience. I didn't even like look up, like now it's over and I don't know if I'll ever make it back here again.
Right. You're right. And I mean, I went through that when I was an athlete too. I was so focused on outcome that you miss out on everything that goes along with winning and losing. The experience is really the things that resonate. When you look back, it's less about the medals and it's more about who you did it with, you know, the experience in and of itself. And what we try to like lean into quite a bit when it comes to camp is the power of the collective, right? So we have a nonprofit that is a part of an extension of our brand that we started years ago to help bring more people out to camp that wouldn't otherwise be able to attend. And the Thursday of camp, we do a big charity workout, and it's awesome. It's not like a hard workout. It's like 7-8 minutes long. And you do it in a team, 3 groups of 3. And you just, hey, who wants to be on my team? It could be, you know, an adaptive athlete, a CrossFit Games athlete, a mom who's never done anything like this before, all together, and we just train together, all with the objective of just sweating and smiling and understand that there's value in collectively getting tired together through fitness. And I just love that part of it. It's not about whether or not you can pick up a barbell or run faster than the person next to you. It's not about competition at all. And a lot of us are very competitive. It's just about the power of doing something hard together. And that is extremely powerful. And when you know that you have someone there beside you to help overcome the challenges, it's even better. And that's why I said early on, maybe before we started recording, but when I think about gymnastics, gymnastics is, again, I think viewed by non-gymnasts as very much an individual sport. I have never viewed gymnastics as an individual sport. And what made me gravitate towards it more was the team component of doing something that betters the collective, that your score contributes to the team. And that's why I wanted to go compete for a collegiate team. That's why I wanted to go compete for Team USA. Never in my life anything have I done that's about me being recognized. What is my contribution to the team? And that's one of the things I think we try to strive to make sure that everyone understands that at camp, that no matter what we're doing here, it's about making the mission better, not about highlighting an individual.
Yeah. I love and appreciate that mindset, but to challenge that, man, I have a lot of friends that played tennis. I have other friends that were high-level gymnasts. They don't think like you. Their perspective or their experience was very different than yours. And 5 hours in the gym, there was a lot of like inner tribe competition of like, oh, if I want to make it, I have to beat that girl or I have to beat that guy. And so it creates a weird family dynamic competition, I guess. It also, like, especially gymnastics and tennis, those are sports that like you're on the court or you're out in the studio for a really long time. From a very young age, you got to stay at a relatively lean body weight because there's a lot of impact, there's a lot of movement. And so from my observation, it creates a little bit of like a social awkwardness because you are alone. Like, it's not like you're having to interact with somebody else on a dual experience like basketball or football. It's a little bit more similar to track. And so I love and appreciate your experience there, but my observation a little bit in being around other gymnasts is that there is a little bit of like a social awkwardness. There is a little bit of like an elitism of like, oh, I move better than you, I do other things. And so it creates a little bit of isolation where there's not as much chemistry or the frequency doesn't blend as much. And I'm curious from your perspective, because there's so many great elements in tennis, in track, in gymnastics, but I want to find a better way to like make it more socially acceptable from my observation.
And again, you're not wrong. I think is my unique experience with the sport. I grew up in New Jersey with probably at the time one of the biggest and best boys gymnastics programs in the country. And so from a young age, I was surrounded by a bunch of other kids that were better than me, that were pushing really hard to become collegiate gymnasts and national team members. We did have another Olympian that came through the program over the years, so we saw that that was achievable at this facility. And so I grew from a very young age to do an individual sport, but appreciate what it meant to be part of a team. And we were a big team. Yeah, it was very special. And from that early age, and for better or for worse, because there were moments where we hated each other. And there were moments where we fought each other. And that's just the reality of our boys growing up two together and it being a heated environment where everyone wants to achieve a high level. But it created a bond that was extraordinarily powerful. And I'll say this today, like the kids that I grew up with and the kids that did gymnastics with me in college and as part of my teams growing up, they're still some of my closest friends. And the parents are my parents' closest friends. You know what I mean? And it creates a very unique bond if you're willing to accept that, yes, we're all individually trying to do our best and to win, because that should be okay. We're not in the sport to not achieve our best. I don't want winning and losing to be the end all be all, but you should always be striving to be the best version of yourself. And whatever the outcome is, the outcome is. And we did that, and it pushed us. But we created a bond where we knew that maybe if there was some internal conflict, if we ever needed to go against another team, that bond was incredibly strong. And so I think a lot of times athletes that don't experience that didn't have a team early on. And they were always the sole athlete at their facility, at their gym, or the only one that was good enough to go compete at a high level or an international stage. And they became isolated. It was them and their coach. And so they maybe resented other kids that did grow up in a team atmosphere or competed in a team sport, and created a very different relationship with an individual sport that I grew up with. But I am grateful for what I had because it allowed me to translate some of those tools that I learned competing with a team and translate it into leadership with college Team USA, but also what it means to lead a team from a business perspective. And I treat my coworkers as team members. I think of us as a professional team, and everyone has, an expertise that they're good at. And I think I am always learning and can be better at what I do, but I take the tools that I learned even when I was a kid and apply that to how can we become better as a team, not as an individual, but we are collectively trying to move this thing forward. And so everyone needs to pull their weight and understand that they need to be good at what they're doing.
Yeah, I like that explanation. It shows the transferable skills, which is cool. You talked about the challenge being when people isolate early on. And there's this challenge or this conflict right now of like, hey, should kids specialize and get really good at that one thing in pursuit of the college scholarship and getting involved with the NIL and eventually professional sports, or should they be diversified? I lean more towards the diversification and the play and the exposure. I'm not really a huge fan of the specialization until later on in life, when you've kind of found that thing that, okay, I've only got so many hours in the day. I've got X, Y, and Z responsibilities that I get to do, not I have to do. And now it's like, okay, like it's a little bit more of something that takes up more room on the plate. But early on, I think different planes of motion, play, different headspaces, different reaction times, different energy, different external thing to orient yourself with, whether that be a ball or a bar or a bike or a skateboard or a scooter. What are your thoughts on the specialization and some of the conflict that we're seeing there as far as the optimal way to raise kids? It's hard.
It's hard. And I don't think there's one right way. And I'm not judging other people's approach to how they parent. Parenting is very difficult. And I want to be respectful of how other parents raise their kids. My personal opinion on it is I think that sports specialization early on is a huge mistake for a variety of reasons. Personally, I did a ton of sports growing up, and I thought it was all valuable for me. I played soccer. I wrestled for a long time, basketball, baseball, gymnastics. I did a variety of things. It exposed me to other ways of moving, but also different friends and different people and different ways to think about movement. And so slowly over time, gymnastics became the one that I gravitated towards, the one where I excelled a little bit more. But I think that my participation of the other sports was incredibly valuable for a variety of reasons. I'm trying to do the same for my kids. Yes, my daughter is in competitive gymnastics and she's 9 years old, which is something that I don't think she should be traveling. I don't think she should be doing all of these higher end things right now. Like, she should be local. But every time my daughter goes to practice, work hard, have fun. That's it. I care not where she places. I don't care how she's doing in relation to other kids in the team. Is she getting better? Is she learning grit? Is she learning resilience? Is she learning how to compete as part of a team? Those are the things I want her to get out of it. And the reality is, for every kid that does sports specialize at 9 and 10 years old, baseball, basketball, doing these camps and traveling the world, and I have a lot of friends whose kids do this, for every kid that goes on to get a college scholarship, to potentially compete at a higher level, there are thousands and thousands of kids that drop out of the sport before they even get to high school, or by the time they're in midpoint, or get injured and can't do the sport anymore, or end up hating the sport that they once loved. There are too many things that can go wrong from a kid being in middle school all the way up to the point of getting a college scholarship, that if you specialize in that sport and that it not work out for you, how devastating is that? Where you put all of your eggs in one basket in terms of who you are as a person, where I am identifying myself at 8 years old as on the track to become a professional baseball player. If that doesn't happen, who am I as a person? You lose your identity. You lose your identity before you even had a chance to figure out who you are. And it can be detrimental from a variety of standpoints, not even to mention the injury portion of it, where you have repetition breakdown of certain joints if you're a pitcher and you're doing it at 10 years old, and how many fastballs can you throw before your UCL tears on you, and those kind of things. But I think it has an emotional component too. My perspective, worry about specializing later in life once you know that it's a thing that you really want to pursue, because the percentage of kids that are going to go and compete at college, then compete at college at a D1, then compete at college at D1 on scholarship, then compete on Team USA, and then potentially make it to the Olympics, it gets more infinitesimally small. And so I think parents just need to be realistic about what the end goal is, and just make sure your kids enjoy and love and are pursuing it from a place of wanting to do it rather than being told to do it, because it can end poorly for a majority of those kids.
Yeah. That's one of the best depictions that I've heard on that topic, man. Well played. Really good job right there.
Thank you.
Intensity has replaced intention. Just because something is hard doesn't mean that it's right. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know, being in the CrossFit space, they talk about intensity a lot. They talk about measurable outcomes. What was your score? How much weight did you lift? They don't talk about sometimes like, hey, I had a better position on my chest to bar pull-up today, and I didn't look like a flopping fish up there. But as a flopping fish, because that's what I know, I might be able to get 30 chest to bars versus I did it this other way and only got 15, right? The famous line of take 2 steps back to take 5 steps forward. How do you create buy-in as a coach to help people understand that it's not always about outcome? It's not always about intensity, but it's rather about the intention and the shape.
I think there's kind of 2 approaches to that. So when we're working with athletes that are worried about faster times and higher reps and volume-based workouts, things like that, we talk a lot about the efficiency of the movement. And so by understanding technique and how your body moves, we can create a more efficient position, which will allow you to tackle those things better, and you'll be able to compete at a higher level. So we try to phrase it more about becoming more efficient, because that resonates with a higher level competitor type mentality. And we can go down that route in terms of efficiency. However, the way that we normally teach is almost, I wouldn't say in opposition, but what does CrossFit stand for? Constantly varied movement, performance, high intensity, those kind of things. What we try to do is say, constantly varied can be great for certain things, but doing the same thing and being repetitive and being consistent with certain things is also very helpful. And so our method of training, and it can be applied to CrossFit's methodology, is around consistency. And I think around skill development, gymnastics is called artistic gymnastics for a reason. It's an art form. I really feel like it's performance-based at that level. And I look at every skill development as a sculpture being created. And I've mentioned this before. It's imagine a big block of marble that starts as just a square block. And initially you take huge chunks out of that block. The gross movement pattern changes. Just understand gross movement pattern. And then over time, you get the chisel out and you start making some more refined understandings and corrections and understanding the full shape that's starting to kind of come through the mist on that block. And then lastly, it's about polish. It's about virtuosity. It's about making the impossible look possible. And not just look possible, but look effortless. And so for us, that process should be embraced. And it should be not taken for granted because then you're going to apply it to a competitive setting. But that journey in and of itself is worth pursuing. And the end result is less important as the pursuit itself. And I've also mentioned this before because I think it's a great phrase and one that I come back to often. Just in the Stanford gym when I was training and I was coaching there for a number of years too, we just have just on the wall is take pride in the process. And for me, that's something I come back to so often around appreciating the small incremental changes that happen over time through consistency, through this chipping away process, as opposed to just saying, okay, I've got it good enough to be able to apply to a workout. Now I'm just going to go and do it. And so you have to appreciate that there's an artistic component to it. There is a mastery component. You know, we use the word virtuosity a lot in the CrossFit space, but I think it gets neglected in terms of its actual application. And so from a Power Monkey side, we try to lean very heavily into not so much constantly varied, but around consistency and that actual application of virtuosity.
It's beautiful, man. It's an interesting, challenging comparison, right? Because I've taken a step back from the CrossFit space a little bit, and I've trained in a lot of different types of gyms, F45s, the yard, fit, traditional Globo gym. There's powerlifting gyms. There's a lot, especially in Southern California. And it's fun to observe. Like I was in the same environment at Invictus there for 12 plus years. And there ends up being things that are a little bit more fixed. And I loved the concept of virtuosity, right? Like it's not about just getting the job done. It's getting the job done well. It's getting the job done where it has an aesthetic to it. It's getting the job done well where it's repeatable and doesn't cause pain. And you're not having to rush and get body work every 3 days and take all kinds of supplements to help support your inflammatory markers. But what's interesting to me is you get a unique psychology from people where some people are like, hey, I'm so concentrated on the form, i.e. virtuosity, that their intensity just sucks. And then you have other people that it's like, they're so focused on intensity that their virtuosity sucks. And so you and I both know within this spectrum, the answer is somewhere in the messy middle. But that's such a customized approach to the goal of the individual, the headspace of the individual. I genuinely believe we're here to love and to learn. And I think when people are married to intensity, they're like, oh, I just want the validation and the love that I did a good job. And then you have other people that are like, hey, I've been injured before playing that game. So now I'm going to be so focused on my form that I'm actually afraid of intensity. Mm-hmm. And that comes into the unique specialization, which is what you do best, is really getting into the weeds, helping understand the specific individual, meeting them where they're at, and then using this artistry to help move them in the right direction towards their goal, but blending that with their psychology and where they're at in life. How have you developed this ability to master that? And what does that look like for you when you're working with somebody in that arena?
I think it's a great question, and it's still constantly something I'm working on because, again, everyone is slightly different in terms of how they approach those things. But what we try to do is separate the competitiveness versus the longevity side of things, being like, are you here to compete and, go to Wadapalooza and try to, top your times at the Open from last year, whatever it might be, versus the person that just wants to become more fit and play with their kids and actually use fitness as a tool to become better at their daily lives. And so you have to compartmentalize those two things first. But then two is I'm a user. I do it myself. Like I've been doing CrossFit for 17 years now. And so I've done all the workouts. I understand where breakpoint happens within a movement. I understand what breathing patterns need to look like when you're doing Diane or Fran or Murph or whatever it might be, and understand what the athlete is going through. So I being able to actually say that I do the things has helped me be able to answer questions more appropriately, rather than just someone that comes from the sports specialization world and is just taking their knowledge and just saying, learn a handstand this way. Like, no, I get it that there's an application for a handstand push-up that I need to be able to do 100 of these. And what do I need to do to take some of the technique and then apply it to a setting where handstands are now fatiguing and I'm in zone 5 doing a handstand workout as opposed to, working on form and technique in zone 1. And so some of it is because I've gone through it and tested out the workouts that I can understand and appreciate where people's breakpoints are and give it from a viewpoint that's slightly different than an expert that is just coming from the space without understanding. But I will say that I've seen a lot of coaches out there that are great coaches that talk about being okay with poorer form because it's being applied to a competitive setting, and just being like, there needs to be this, at some point, the form is going to break down because of the intensity component, and we just need to be okay with that. And I think it's a little bit of a missed opportunity, because while that might happen, we shouldn't just be okay with it, because we should always strive for technique and efficiency of movement pattern to be at the forefront of the mind. And if it does happen, it breaks down okay, but we shouldn't just gravitate towards it's inevitable.
I think it's a data point, right? Like, I remember when we used to do the famous 30-minute EMOMs, and I would struggle right around minute 16. That's where the wheels started to fall off a little bit, and some of that was I was a big sweater, so integrating like hydration and just like taking a sip during a couple of those like minutes around that time was really valuable. Depletion of glycogen and getting like a little bit of like Vitargo or Carbolin and getting a little bit of sugars in my system at that time was really helpful. Maybe placebo. But the point that I'm making is you notice, hey, when I'm doing strict handstand push-ups at rep 24, my ribs start to arch, my elbows start to flare too much. I start to like strain at the neck. And now these links in the chain are leaking force. I think what those coaches are trying to say is like at some point you want to make yourself so strong and so resilient that you're going to have buffers for when intensity is starting to kind of break the wheels off like that. But I agree with you. I liked the way you said that it's a missed opportunity. We shouldn't just accept that. We should notice that as a data point, get back to the drawing board, and then go put it into practice. And the other thing that I think you said that was really important is there's a big difference between skill acquisition. Hey, I can do the ring muscle up. Hey, I can do 10 ring muscle ups. But doing that in zone 1 versus zone 5, can you do it under fatigue after a 30 cal assault bike when your heart rate is at 165 to 180?
Absolutely. And it's funny you say that, because I've tested out workouts. I've tried to do this myself. Like, I've done VO2 max testing with muscle ups. I've tried really hard.
That had to be painful, dude.
Very painful. Very painful.
Brutal.
I've done zone 2 handstand workouts, and I've created zone 2 handstand workouts where, because for me, zone 2 is really difficult. Like, if I go ruck, I can stay in zone 2, but if I walk, I'm in zone 1. If I start jogging, I just skyrocket to zone 3 and 4. And so it's really hard for me to be able to figure out, okay, if I want to do zone 2 training. So I've started to incorporate zone 2 handstand training, and I do presses or do handstand push-ups, and I try really hard to understand how technique will allow me to manage heart rate. And so one of the things that I think is worth mentioning here when it comes to applying technique to intensity-based workouts is using cues. I just did a post on this recently. Tactile cues, visual cues, auditory cues are hugely valuable. I would say probably visual cues are the ones that most people understand and are most easily understood. Using visual targets and visual contact points when you're in a movement pattern to make sure that positions stay intact as you fatigue, and how powerful that can be. And understanding, as an example, say you're doing a muscle up. Personally, I don't start pulling until I see my toes in my muscle up. So that's a visual contact point that no matter how fatigued I am, I know that if I see my toes, it's my indicator to initiate the pull. If I don't see my toes, I'm probably either pulling too early or too late. And so by adding a visual component or a cue in there that you can resonate with, no matter how fatigued you are, it will allow you to make sure you can maintain efficiency and technique for longer periods of time. And so we're big proponents of being aware and create awareness within it. So there's an educational component for not only the coach to be able to teach the athlete, but a high level athlete to be able to understand what they're doing within the movement. So for us, yes, you can be fatigued out of your mind, but if you have the ability to just become slightly more aware, you can become a more competent, more efficient athlete because of it.
The thing that's beautiful about that is awareness is so freaking powerful. With Allsmith, we call it playful perspective architecture. What you look at or what you give attention to is typically what pulls your energy. So are you thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm so tired, I need to like breathe more, my grip's going away, I'm starting to get loose? Or are you thinking, hey, I worked with Dave at Power Monkey Camp 2 weeks ago, and we talked about when I see my toes, my hips extend and I pull. That keeps the toes below the rings or below the bar.
Yep.
It's such a simple framework to be like, focus on toes.
That's
like
it.
It's one word.
Exactly.
And I think it's repeatable, but when you create context with it within a slower coaching environment and dynamic, then you allow them to feel it. You're kind of creating that motor learning and that patterning. And then it's like, okay, take a little break, digest, think about it, ask all the questions, go through the learning phase of conscious competence of like step 1, step 2, step 3. And then let's put it into a workout now. Let's get a practical application where I'm not going to over cue or over coach you. I'm going to let you go do your thing. And you're going to screw it up a ton. And then we're going to go back to the drawing board. We're going to play. We're going to take pride in the process. And now you're going to screw it up a little bit less. And it's going to be less about conscious competence, and you eventually get people to the point of unconscious competence.
Absolutely.
And I think the framework that you guys are tinkering with is really cool. What I'm curious about in association with that is you probably, like Dave Newman, are coaching people remotely. You've got camps. You're running a business. You're trying to be a dad. You're traveling. You yourself are trying to get in your fitness. You're trying to take care of yourself. You're on podcasts. You're on Zoom calls. There's marketing. There's running a team. I could go on and on. I've run out of fingers. How do you develop the patience and the wherewithal with somebody? Do you create, hey, we're going to do an hour session together? Is that the framework or the boundaries? How do you create a teaching dynamic? Because I know your mind a little bit and you're like, oh, I want to fix that. I want to give. But then you also step back. You're like, they're not ready for that yet, or they need to digest it. How do you decide how much to give, how much to pull back, how much time is good and how much time is kind of not good, where it becomes junk miles?
Do you mean specifically in teaching skills, like during that process? Yeah. So a lot of it has to do with the person's end goals and how much time they can really commit to something, right? Because these pursuits, in a lot of cases, I use this as an example, and I think it's worth mentioning to you and your audience, is because it's more for perspective than it is to demoralize. So just kind of keep that in mind as I mention this. But skills in gymnastics are rated on a level scale that's on a letter level scale. So A is the most basic, all the way up to now J level skills. And the A level skills are considered to be fairly basic. A strict muscle up is not even an A in our code of points. It has no value. And that's devastating to hear for a lot of people, that the holy grail for them is to get a strict muscle up, right? It's like devastating. And it means nothing in the gymnastics world. It doesn't mean it's not worth pursuing. It doesn't mean that it's a difficult movement in terms of how long it takes. But I want people to understand timelines and the chipping away process that comes along with learning these things. So again, an iron cross, which is like a super difficult movement, used to be a B level skill in our code of points, a B, which is incredibly challenging. They upgraded it to a C recently. But it's a C level skill on this A to J scale. And it took me 12 years to learn a B and C level skill. So when I tell people this, I want them to really appreciate that the timelines are not measured in one cue or one workout or one open where someone's screaming at you to get your first muscle up and you do it and then you can never repeat it because you didn't even know what you did. They're measured in weeks and months and years and then sometimes decades. And so being able to at least walk in understanding that this is a process and understanding that I'm not going to have the end result perfectly, maybe ever, but the journey is something that, again, like I said earlier, is worth pursuing. That's already a win. That's already a win. It gives me the open space as a coach to be able to tinker to say, we're going to try different things. We're going to try this. Maybe that was not going to work for you. We're going to try this cue. Everyone learns slightly differently, so it gives me the space to be able to say as a coach, I don't have the objective of trying to create magic in a couple of days to hopefully allow you to compete with this. But you're on this journey, and I am a guide for you on this journey. So let us learn this together. And a good coach is understanding what resonates with the athlete that you're working with. And it takes a lot to be able to invest in an athlete. But I noticed this when I was being coached, that the best coaches that I ever had invested in me and invested time in understanding who I was as a person and how to get the most out of me day to day, as opposed to just saying a blanket statement where we're writing this on the wall and everybody's doing it. And so when I saw my final coach at the Olympic Training Center, he was a master at this. It was more about psychology than it was about coaching and training. And he was so incredibly in tune with each of the athletes, because there were 10 of us at the training center, right? And each of us learned and trained completely different. And so we'd have our general plan, and he would walk in, and he would just read us, and he would say, okay, today, Dave, I can see you're maybe a little more tired than you'd normally be. So we're going to back off on these things, and we're going to work on these areas instead. And that level of understanding and awareness is so powerful that if you can translate that to the people that you're working with, they will trust you to go on that journey with them. And so some of it is understanding and getting buy-in, but then it's also imperative as you as a coach to be willing to go that extra step, to be able to say, okay, I'm not just creating a universal plan here, but this is dictated according to how you learn best and how we can get the most out of, where your strengths and weaknesses are.
I totally agree. And it's an interesting component as a coach, because the best coaches, in my opinion, do that. I've had some amazing coaches that operated from an intuitive perspective, especially in the basketball side of things. But what's interesting is when you're communicating to a parent or to an athlete, or you're trying to market on social media, you don't go, hey, I take an intuitive approach to help guide you towards your peak expression. People are like, what does that mean? Why should I trust you? Okay, you were a great athlete one time. Like, why should I sign up for your programming, or why should I come to your gym or trust you? And it's an interesting thing, going back to where we started our conversation around Power Monkey Camp, because the best coaches do it that way. The best coaches come in and they have this whole toolbox, and they pick and choose. Oh, that person needs a screwdriver today. That person needs some wire cutters. That person needs a hammer. That person needs a saw. But they have access to those tools. And the best part, in my opinion, about those types of coaches is they're like Mr. Miyagi. Yeah. They don't sit there and flex about all the tools they have. They're actually shitty marketers. Yep. They usually don't make great money, but they impact lives. Yep. And when they die, those funerals are packed because people come to realize that motherfucker could do something different than anybody else.
Because you care. You care. Yep. Caring is probably the most important, and I would say from a Power Monkey standpoint, all of our coaches care at such a deep level about who they're working with that it allows them to, maybe we're terrible marketers. Maybe that's our missing link to be able to get more people through. But once people work with us, they understand that there's a difference. And that's why we do so many of our weekend courses where we travel around the world, just trying to showcase why we're different. Like, techniques are relatively the same in terms of how you're going to teach a handstand, but one, we can pick out things that might resonate with you a little bit more because we're in tune with who you are as a person, and we can do that relatively quickly. And we give a shit. We want you to get better. We want to stay involved. Every time I teach a course, every time we do a camp, the last thing we leave people with is, we did this whole week or 2 days together, and this is the start of our journey together. This is not the end. We're not saying goodbye. You are forever now a part of the Power Monkey family, and we want you to use this as a resource. Call us, send us messages, send us feedback, send us comments and notes and videos. And we want to be a part of your journey moving forward. And that leads to a lot of people sending us things that take time from us, but it's absolutely what we want to be doing. And so a coach at that level needs to give a shit and care about the person as well as how the movement pattern goes. And those are few and far between. And I feel like we've done such an amazing job of being able to cultivate that type of personality at camp.
Yeah, for sure, man. If people get anything from our conversation today, it's gas. Give a shit.
Yeah.
It really goes a long way. I want to hit you with some heavy hitters real quick. Longevity is replacing performance is the real goal. It's an interesting thought because I don't think people just want to peak once anymore. They don't want to just get the muscle up in the open, right? And they don't even remember what they're doing, like you said. They want to last. They want to like own the skill rather than, hey, you know, I tasted that flavor once upon a time in my life. What comes to mind?
Well, it's exactly the way that we train. It's the way that we teach people. And I care less about how people perform from a competitive standpoint and more about, and I mean, again, I try to view this through personal eyes. I'm getting older. I'm not a kid anymore. My body has more aches and pains than it used to than when I was a kid. And I want to be able to move as well. My kids think I'm a superhero right now. You know, they see me doing handstands and muscle ups and handstand push-ups, and they think I'm the strongest guy in the world. And I love that. And I want to be able to showcase fitness and wellness for as long as I possibly can with them, not just for them, to be able to pick them up and do things, but show them that a lifestyle that incorporates fitness as one of the absolute priorities in life will lead to a life that is happier and healthier in every other area. And so we teach our method, what we're going to be teaching at our New York gym, which I think we maybe mentioned prior to us starting to record, is going to be around how do we do that for the masses? How do we do that for groups of people as opposed to individuals? And so it's how I train. It's how I want other people to train. And so the idea of longevity, I know it's a term that's used so much right now that it's probably losing its meaning. But for me, it is one that actually still holds a lot of power in terms of how we teach and how we hope that people approach movement, because it is more about trying to be fit as long as you possibly can as opposed to just getting through a workout.
I'm going to take the podcast highlighter real quick. That's the first time I've heard somebody say, I don't want to just train and be fit and healthy for my kids, but with my kids. That's a different ideology. That's a different mindset that I think is really special. Got to throw it out to LeBron James, right? Playing with his son right now on the Los Angeles Lakers. Pretty cool. That video that you posted where you had you and your daughter doing overhead lunges.
Yeah.
You're stepping forward, you're decelerating, stepping back. And then there's a moment, Dave, where she looks at you and she's like, whoa, I want to like copy what daddy's doing. And then she like comes back. You could see like she's processing, like, am I doing it right? Is this good? And then she looks back at you and I'm like, man, I hope one day that I have children that look at me the way she looks at Dave. Like that feeling, I saw it. And like, you can't even see her eyes, but you just know based on like her aura and how she's operating. I was like, that's pretty cool. The other thing that's important to do our highlighter on, the brick and mortar, man. Power Monkey Fitness is bringing a facility to New York. That's super cool. What's coming to mind? Like that already is making my heart rate race and go up a little bit. It's exciting.
It is. It's been a few years in the works. You know, we got our start in New York. I met my wife here. She was going to college here, and I grew up not that far away. And we started our fitness journey together here in New York City. We used to coach at CrossFit Long Island City back in 2010, 2011, back in the day when that was a great location out in Queens. Then we helped get Solace off the ground, CrossFit Solace back in the day when that was one of the more premier and luxury CrossFit locations in the whole world. It was beautiful and kind of ran Power Monkey out of it. And so this will be our first stab at having our own brick and mortar. And it's in conjunction with incredible equipment manufacturing company, Technogym, based out in Italy. You know, we got roots out there. We went and moved out to Italy for a period of time with the family to get this project off the ground. And we still have some things that we need to get going, but we're incredibly excited. Construction has started. We are moving quite briskly in terms of having everything ready for this summer. It's going to be in Tribeca, which is one of the premier neighborhoods in New York, which we're incredibly excited about. I don't know how we're going to afford to live here, but New York is out of control with pricing, but it's going to be a very special location where all the things that we talked about in terms of technique-based movement and longevity-based training is going to be at the forefront. A lot of heavy PT type stuff. Our group classes are going to be incorporating, yes, body weight, yes, free weight, but also plate-loaded training. And so it's going to be a really special place that it'll have, you know, a lot of recovery tools as well, sauna, cold plunges, those type of things, medical services, VO2 max testing, RMRs, a lot of hormone replacement, peptides, all those things that you normally will want to see from a high-end facility. And so we're trying to create a space where people who have multiple memberships can come to one place and basically have everything they need for their fitness and long-term goals. So we're very excited about it. We don't know what it's going to be called yet. It'll be Power Monkey will be obviously the forefront of it, but we're very excited. And one of the other cool things that's worth mentioning is we're going to have rotating experts. So one of the things that we built into the P&L is an apartment here in the city for part of the Power Monkey team to always come and do good contributions. So every month we're going to have a rotating expert doing monthly cycles around a different specialty. And so we just want the community to know like we are so heavily invested into expertise that we want to be able to showcase that at a high level. So not only our full-time coaches, but we're going to have rotating experts on demand, basically monthly as well, which we're excited about.
What an awesome model, man. I'm pumped for you. I can feel the passion and the fear. And that's appropriate, right? Like fear is a great motivator. Both New York and California, so freaking expensive, man.
Yep.
Every month as an entrepreneur, I like high five my wife and I'm like, hey, we paid our bills again. We
Absolutely.
did the thing.
Absolutely.
And I think there's something to be taken away there, right? Like there's a vulnerability in pursuing your passions and a life of love and service. But also what comes with that is the financial challenge, the emotional challenge, the navigation of rejection, we made way more sales 2 months ago than we did this month. But knowing that it's going to be okay because you're in it for the right reasons. And then not looking so far ahead. I know, businesses want to know what's your 3-year plan, what's your 5-year plan in 10 years, how are you going to get it back to the investors? But there's so much power in just like one step at a time. One dumbbell snatch gets you to 50 dumbbell snatches. And I think there's so much crossover to what you're doing. I love that you guys are integrating the RMR, the recovery, the sauna and ice, which is, dude, early on, I thought sauna and ice was going to be like, oh, it's healing me. It's like really helping with my recovery. It's turned into my social hour, man.
Sure.
And then in the beginning, like you're communicating with people and then it gets so hot when you're pouring the water. And then it's like comedic to watch all of us squirm as we're like, 5 more minutes. Oh, yeah. And like the sand can't move slow enough.
No, absolutely.
And then, the peptides, man, we work with different naturopathic medicine doctors out here. We love educating, motivating, inspiring. I think the things that RFK Jr. is doing is really cool, man. Getting people to move again. You're getting this simplicity back into physical education, climbing monkey bars and push-ups and pull-ups and hinging and picking things up and carrying things and squat patterning and falling down and getting up. Mm-hmm. Things that are just so important to the human experience. And I love that simplicity is now coming back into the forefront of communication. And then I'm curious your thoughts, man. Like the food pyramid, it's changed. Like everybody and their mom can get into that politically if they want. But the real thing is eat real food. If it comes out of a bag or a box, it's probably not the best. If you shop the perimeter of the grocery store, you're probably better off. If you can pronounce the ingredients, it's probably pretty good. And at the end of the day, like processed carbohydrates are probably not the best unless you're a highly competitive athlete using them as a tool for a specific reason.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get it very much pushback from that. I don't care who you are. I mean, those are all incredibly powerful things to be able to offer from a nutritional standpoint. And I think, it's a lot of what CrossFit has been preaching for years. So I think the CrossFit community has already embraced a lot of that mentality when it comes to what they're doing from a nutritional standpoint. Nutrition in our house is huge. Like I'm the cook in our house and I cook just about every meal and I make my kids lunches every single day. I know what's going in them. I know what they're eating. So for us, nutrition is not to say they don't have a moment of breakdown here and there where I have my ice cream or cookie and absolutely not perfect with it, but we do the best we can to make sure that we're teaching our kids, and again, from a teaching perspective and what our kids see as acceptable in the household. From a nutritional standpoint, they're very aware that food matters. They come to the store with us, they come to the farmer's market, they come and buy the food with us so they can see exactly what it means to be part of the entire process. But then from the fitness side, schooling what it is right now, like I ask my kids what they learn each day, and sometimes I'm just like, really? What did you do today? And it's like very different than what I imagined school to be. But then they come home and screen time and how much education is digital now versus actually interacting or learning through play or learning through actually human interaction. And so we don't let our kids on screens very much. They don't have iPads, they don't have phones, they don't have any of that stuff. But if they want to watch TV, or if they want to do anything that is digital based, or if they want to do something that they consider to be fun, they have to earn it. Everything is an earning based process in our house. So they have to earn it through things that we dictate are your fun processes. And most of them are fitness based. So my 5-year-old now will always come up to me and say, can I earn some time to watch TV? She's 5 and she knows what her earning process is. She has to do 5 rounds of 3 strict pull-ups. She has to do 5 rounds of 20-second handstand holds. She has to do 5 rounds of 15 air squats. She has to do her splits, and she has to do some burpees. And she's just like, can I earn my time? And I want her to appreciate that. And to her, it's like playtime. It's like, okay, I get to go do those things. I get to be with daddy. I get to be in the gym. And so for us, it's about getting what you want also means that you have to put some time in. And so there's an earning process that I really appreciate that we're trying to teach our kids, but some of it is nutrition based. I kind of went off topic a little bit, but I think it ties into learning and teaching the next generation what it means to be healthy from a variety of different ways and how things need to be earned and not given. And so we just want to create a mindset as early as possible as their minds are kind of growing that, this is going to be how they become better at things later in life too, through earning them, not being given to them.
So beautiful, man. Like you couldn't have said it any more perfect. Play truly is the highest form of learning. And I think what you guys are doing as parents is a phenomenal blueprint for other parents that are hopefully listening to this and looking for some ways to integrate a little bit of structure or discipline associated with screen time. Last thing, man, what's the future of CrossFit? What's going on? It's an organization that has done so much good, so much great education, amazing relationships. I have mostly good things to say about it. And obviously there's been some challenges the last few years. There's been some branding challenges, some disorganization from leadership, and obviously some safety concerns. What are your thoughts as to the future? What are your thoughts on World Fitness Project? If you could kind of narrow that into a little bit of like a brain dumped paragraph.
I love CrossFit. I mean, CrossFit's given me and so many of the other Power Monkey coaches an avenue to continue to do what we love. So I will always be a fan, a supporter, a user of the product. Obviously, it's anyone who's been around the early, 2008, 2009, those early years in Carson at the games will tell you, it's different now. It's very different now than those years in terms of just the grassroots, seeing the explosive growth of CrossFit and how kind of fun it was as it kind of grew. It's an amazing community. The people are fantastic. And what I love about it is people from every single demographic and background and culture and political perspective. And we all get together and it's all around the same thing, just becoming fitter and being healthy. And it's one of the things I always appreciated about it. What does the future look like? I don't know. And I'm a little bit, it's a little frustrating to kind of like think about missed opportunities with what CrossFit could have done, choices made and things like that, because obviously things are filling the gaps that CrossFit is missing out on in terms of new entities coming through and where people's fitness eyeballs are going these days. I hope that they continue to make good decisions in terms of next steps on how to have this 2.0 version or 3.0, wherever they are in this new iteration, so that they continue to stay relevant and not only cater to the diehards, but hopefully continue to get new eyeballs on it and new people that are interested in seeing the magic that can be this type of method. I'm going to continue to support and be a fan of what they do. Like I said, it's given me and so many other people that come from very sports specialized backgrounds an opportunity to create a career. And when you're doing gymnastics, prior to CrossFit, the only careers that you could have done were go and coach a club team or collegiate team, go to the stunt world, which is where my partner from Power Monkey, he's actually on Daredevil today shooting the new season. Nice. Stunt world, that's what he does. Or you go to the circus, which is what my wife did, which is what all my college roommates, a lot of them became circus performers. And those are normally the routes if you want to stay involved with the sport. CrossFit opened up a whole new path to teach our specialty, our discipline, to a group of people that didn't grow up with it. And so we are eternally grateful. I mean, I'm speaking for other people who are specialists in the space. I think rightfully so, and hopefully I don't get any pushback on it, but it's given us an opportunity to to teach our specialty, what we love, to people that didn't grow up with it, and hopefully grow our individual sports. And so instead of the sport saying, CrossFit is bastardizing a muscle up or a handstand push up, no, these are opportunities to teach. These are opportunities to get people who didn't grow up the sport to find a love with it. And the two comments that I get, I'll leave you with this, two comments that I get the most that tell me that the sport can continue to grow and that what we're doing is a good path in life. We're leaving the place a little bit better than we found it. Is I can't wait for my kids to be old enough to do the sport of gymnastics, and I wish that my parents would have put me in it when I was a kid. And that tells me that we have some opportunity to grow this sport, and that's really my main goal. Grow the sport, grow the interest in what I fell in love with when I was 6 years old, and just make sure that people are understanding how to move well.
It's beautiful, man. Opportunity over judgment for sure. The other thing that's important to note, when one thing creates a ripple effect, right? Like you look at just the NBA, for example, and it's like you look at all the media associated with like the NBA and TNT and Charles Barkley and Shaq and Kenny Smith. Well, now you think about, okay, those guys are forward facing. There's a media team behind them. There's script, there's production, there's editing. Look at all those extra jobs that are now being created.
Oh, yeah.
And CrossFit's done an amazing job of that. And so no matter what pushback people have or what tension they have with CrossFit, it definitely created a ripple effect within the fitness and the wellness space that I think everyone, including myself, should be very grateful for.
Without a doubt. Probably one of the biggest that any one single entity has ever contributed to fitness. I mean, it's completely changed the landscape of the way people train. And I think there's no pushback on that.
For sure, man. As you're leaving Portland, headed to New York, you're a Trailblazers fan. You rooting for Giannis to head to the Knicks. You rooting for Brooklyn. Where are we at there, man?
I love my New York sports teams. I'm a huge Giants fan. I'm an enormous Mets fan. Growing up, I was a Bulls fan because I was a Jordan fan. So I just fell in love with Jordan when I was a kid. So I just loved everything Bulls. I did not like the Knicks growing up because the Stark years and the Ewing years, and they were head to head with the Bulls, and so I didn't grow up a Knicks fan.
Hey, that move though at Madison Square Garden that Jordan put on John Starks and went baseline and dunked on Patrick Ewing.
Yeah, it's one of the most iconic moments. I actually went to. So cool. I went to a Bulls Knicks game when I was a kid and watched Jordan drop 50 on the Knicks, which was one of my highlights of my childhood, seeing that in person. Man. But I will say that when the Knicks are good, the magic that happens in the city is like nowhere else. The power and the kind of excitement that happens in the city, like the team right now, they're pretty solid. They have their ups and downs throughout the season, but the core that they have in that team, whether or not Giannis comes to the Knicks, the power when the Knicks are good, and MSG just being what it is in terms of the landmark, just makes everything else in the city more fun and more exciting. So
yeah, it's a cool spot. Brunson's doing a good job like carrying the weight right now. But dude, I have to tell you, when I was at San Diego State, we made the Final Four of the NIT, and we played against Baylor. Mm-hmm. They're at Madison Square Garden, and there's a feeling when you walk through the tunnel and you like go through the elevator. It smells like old pizza. You're kind of looking around. And you walk in, and we're in shoot around. We're kind of just warming up a little bit. This was way before the game. You kind of just like look up. You're like, that's where Jordan dunked on Patrick Ewing. That's where Kobe did this. That's where Larry Hughes and John Starks and all these guys did some really cool things. And you just kind of pause and like go down memory lane. And I don't know if every arena has that.
No. It's a special place for sure. And just New York has a certain aura to it. When you're good in New York, it's like nowhere else. When you're bad in New York, people let you hear it for sure.
Oh yeah.
But you have a certain personality type to be able to navigate the media, the fans. They're brutal. But when you stand out, when you're a Jeter, when you're a Ewing, when you win, when you're a Manning, you're a legend. You're a god forever around here. So who knows? Maybe Brunson is the next one to bring the Knicks to that pinnacle.
I'm stoked for it, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Durante. Thanks for joining me today, dude.
Pleasure, man. Always good chatting with you.
That was super fun. Where can people find out more about you, more about Power Monkey Fitness and Power Monkey Camp?
Absolutely, super easy. Just on our IG channels at Power Monkey Fitness. Myself is just at Dave Durante, and then our websites are at Power Monkey Fitness and at Power Monkey Camp. We got 2 camps again this year. Our spring one is April 26th to May 2nd, and you can sign up for that on our website. And then our fall one is our first iteration that we're changing things up a little bit and doing a long weekend version, September 24th to 27th. We've had a lot of people over the years talk about just not being able to come out for a full week. So we're doing a Thursday to Sunday iteration that's a little more condensed.
Ooh, I might be in for that one. That's always been my challenge too, man.
Yep. So we've tried to listen to the masses and are offering a condensed version that still has all the magic of camp, but in a, only need to take 2 days off of work instead of a full week.
I love that, man. I appreciate you guys listening to the community. Thanks for giving us a peek behind the curtain today. Guys, if you enjoyed my conversation today with Dave Durante, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. And as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Till next time.